Welcome to the Lights On podcast, featuring stories behind building and running successful hotel businesses. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Lights On podcast. I'm Kin Siu, CEO of Lights On, and your host today. On this podcast, we share stories across hospitality about building and growing hotel businesses. Today, I have Stephanie Ledger from First Rate Hospitality. Welcome. And before a formal introduction, Stephanie, I want to point out some of the past episodes to our listeners out there. Today, we're going to talk a lot about service excellence. So there are some past episodes worth checking out here. One is Azi Kanashi, former GM of Soho House in LA. She actually led the team to earn a Michelin key last year. So we talk a lot about culture and services and excellence. So definitely check that one out. The other one, Jody Odlin, who started the Global Hospitality Collective to really standardize service standard for short-term rental operators. Another one worth checking out. You can find all of those at lightson.co/podcasts. And before we get into it, a quick word on what we do at Lights On. We are the revenue and marketing team for independent hotels. Over 40 properties across the US, we are helping out $85 million in annual revenue under our management. And the problems that we fix aren't the dramatic ones. We are the ones fixing the quiet bleed across the board. Think about hotel rates that you forgot to price to the right spots, your business nights, but you're really pricing that at a lower rate. And you don't want to pay OTA with all those commissions because you want more of those business coming through your direct website. So there are many things that we can do to really help to fix and find these kind of problems across the board to boost your revenue. A recent case study, we helped a 34-room resort in Florida. After 6 weeks working with them, we get them ahead $400,000 in revenue. And again, this is not a magic bullet. This is just lots of the really boring stuff that we find and fix for them. So if you are suspecting you have some problems like that, you want to have a conversation, come to our website, lightson.co. And also want to give a shout out to Melissa Benham, the owner of Benham PR based in Florida. She actually the one making this show happen today. She nicely also a past podcast guest and introduced me to Stephanie today to make this show happen. So thank you, Melissa. And back to you, Stephanie, a formal intro. Founder and Chief Excellence Officer of First Rate Hospitality. Before you started that, you started in hospitality at the age of 17, rose through the Ritz-Carlton, across the board, in the game, in luxury hospitality. And the part I really want to find out is that you spent quite a bit of time as an undercover Forbes Travel guide inspector, secretly grading luxury properties incognito. Sometimes I want to hear the story about you wearing a wig for sure. And 2017, you kind of turned all of these experience into your consultancy firm, First Rate Hospitality, and train more than 20,000 hospitality professionals. So today, I really want to drill down and talk about service excellence, because I think this is kind of where from your firsthand experience, training, secret shopping, and even like in the game to start with. So really want to like dive in and share your experience with our listeners today. So really welcome you to the show and super excited to learn from you.
No, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yes. So since you had my dream job for a while, being a secret shopper, so Stephanie, how did you first of all get into that? I mean, obviously you started in hospitality, but just from that getting into being a secret shopper, I think I just gotta learn how you even got into that.
Well, this was many years ago. So back then, I was working for a hotel in New York City, and we were a client. So we would have the Forbes Travel Guide team come and doing formal training, also to making sure that we were doing incognito shops for our team as well throughout the year. So I really got to get close with the Forbes Travel Guide team because I was the direct contact setting up the training on the dates and then also to reviewing the audits. So then, of course, I was one of those as well growing up in the hospitality of being like, I want that dream job. How do you do it? And of course, I went out there and I just asked point blank, I think you should hire me. And so then one thing led to another through the whole interview process. And this was also too a while back where it's a little bit different now. Now it's more of a formal, if they have availability, they, show it onto their website. So you can always look back to seeing if that it is available on their website of what open positions. But yeah, back in the day, it was very like hush hush. And also too, for me, all my friends are in the hospitality industry. So it's really now being like, okay, can't tell anyone what I'm doing. I'm just kind of going with the flow. So yeah, so it really was just reaching out. I mean, a lot in my career has always been, I want to do that. I want to achieve that. And I would ask to figure out a way to being able to say, okay, yes, I did it. And so, yeah, so then I got hired on and started the process.
Wow, that's crazy. So is this process really exclusive to luxury properties? Because I think many listeners, when it comes to it's Forbes, is that it must be just for the 5-star luxury properties and things like that. Is that true?
It is, for even I would say at 3-star that are looking to achieve to that next level of the 4-star. It's really, not saying that it's just the high tier caliber. Of those fives, wishing there was a 6-star that existed, but it's also too just other modern hotels that are, just looking to provide their services of elevating their experience for the guests that, go to a caliber that is accustomed to staying at those ultra luxury hotels. So it's not just ultra exclusive to those high-end luxury hotels. There's still the recommended 4-star as well that their clients are
I
as well.
see. I see. So back then during that process, I really want to hear the story about wearing a wig. How undercover did you have to be through the process?
Oh yeah. No, very. Because also too, like I come from the operation. So I remember when I was in front desk being like, oh, we have to find out who that inspector is. And of course you would assume that it's someone elderly, maybe more of closer to retirement. And so knew what like the faux pas was of what a typical inspector who they thought was, especially back, remember this is about almost 15 years ago. So yeah, so it's it's definitely been a very different to what it is now. But yeah, back then, so I always would just then do the complete opposite, still making sure a traditional guest enjoying the services, but I felt like I just knew kind of certain words or things so it doesn't seem like that typical inspector. And then also too wearing the wig. So, I have a lot of friends, as we know, in the hospitality industry. You start off with one company or one location and then you go somewhere else. And so I just felt like you never knew when you were going to run into someone that you assume you didn't know anyone at that property, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, I do know someone that's here. So I always felt like having a wig, to kind of throw off, or also too, if they may have seen me coming in, or I think, maybe someone is on to me, and then I can feel like, oh, maybe I can just change up so I can blend more in with
I see.
the crowd of guests.
I see. Have you ever got caught?
There's been close calls. I haven't had that confirmation. But there's definitely been clues. But like, don't make it obvious.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
then once you find out, then now we have to go through the whole process again. Because
I see.
at the end of the day, evaluation, you really want it to be what is a typical guest experience.
Gotcha. Yeah. And well, obviously, I think you're still doing some of that right now as part of your consulting business. So can you kind of walk us through, let's say, imagine we are now evaluating a property. What would be your process from start to finish, from walking into, or maybe even before you started walking into the hotel? What are you going to be doing research for, getting to the day of inspection, kind of getting through into the hotel, check-in, seeing the room? Yeah, can you share? Because I think lots of the listeners is going to get lots of insights for how service standard will be evaluated.
Yeah. So here at First Rate Hospitality, it's all in the name. So we are coming in first to rate the properties. Also, too, first rate means the best of the best. So we want to making sure that the service is the best of the best, especially in their hotel set, in their comp set, in their market. So, it also too, it doesn't start just like you said, when you're walking in through those doors at the hotel. There's a lot of pre-arrival work as well. It's a typical guest experience. A typical guest is going to go and look on the reviews. They're going to look at the photos of the website. And I would have to say that's an area that a lot of hotels can really look at. What does the guest seeing beforehand between Google, between their website? I mean, there's so many times where the hotel went through a recent renovation and they haven't uploaded the photos yet. Or they put more of the renderings because they're getting ready to go through a renovation, but the hotel still is not renovated yet.
I
So
see.
there's a lot of misconsumption, with that website that of course you can't put out everything on the website, but you want to making sure it match for what the guest is about to experience at their hotel.
Gotcha. So really kind of from that perspective, setting your expectations from online reviews and the listing the websites, what they're seeing and what the travelers would be seeing. Would you also look at the reviews and kind of start getting a sense of what people liked about the properties, what people complain about it, and kind of start forming that opinion ahead of time?
Yes. Yeah, so a lot of that research too goes into also too with the executive team too. They've hired now First Rate Hospitality, so doing all of that research and then also too of discussing, what do they want to have as their return on investment with working with First Rate Hospitality. And so that way too, it's, we're not coming in with saying this is our cookie cutter inspection or our training, is we really make it customized based upon the property. Properties are very different, where some properties may be very good at their communication skills. But then, they don't know how to anticipate the guest needs or really showing that genuine interest to the guest. So now it's like, okay, we don't need to focus so much on like the communication part because we know they're doing very well. We'll touch upon it to making sure it's consistent. But now then focusing where the client wants to focus on, the hotel.
I see. I see. Yeah, I definitely want to park this topic later in the show about the return on investment because I think lots of hoteliers is gonna think about great. I love great service. How does actually having services and doing inspection like that is gonna like turn into return on investment, right? But let's park that to later to the show because we want to finish the kind of that mental walkthrough of the inspection, right? So now, you communicated with the executive team, you aligned expectation, what they care and what they want you to focus on. you do your research up ahead pre-arrival, right? Online presence, website, listings, pictures, reviews. So now you have an idea.
Yeah.
What's next getting into the day of inspection?
Yeah, so now randomly just made the reservation and show up. So we make a timeline obviously of when they're looking because sometimes too like here we have a holiday, summer holiday coming up and stuff, and so it's not they wouldn't get their return on investment and their steps of service that goes on typically because they may be a property where the height of their season is the summertime, and especially this holiday weekend. So then we're like, okay, you know what? We want to making sure like what would be a typical time for this particular persona of the guests, but then also to making sure that we're capturing truly what's going on and not, when it's those height occupancy that's going on.
Gotcha. So you find the timeline. Obviously, you can tell them when exactly you're gonna show up because you have to remain undercover.
Yeah.
Do you
Mhm.
book direct in this case, or do you go through OTAs? Do you also evaluate kind of that booking process?
Yes, so always booking direct. Once in a while, depending of the client, will book different. Also, to online versus phone conversation can be very different. Even email communication pre-arrival. So a lot of that stuff we capture, from the client because also too like if you're going into like New York City where they may book more direct online. Like they really don't get that many calls calling in. So we really want to capture that typical guest experience as well.
I see. So from that, now you booked. So now the day of showing up, what happened?
No, we just experienced the hotel just like a normal guest. So checking in, maybe their room's not ready yet. Okay, what are we going to do to see the property, learn the lay of the land, interactions with the staff, just a typical guest experience. There's nothing that's out of the ordinary, asking for like, oh, I need goose down pillows or blue M&Ms. There's none of those trick questions. It's just a typical guest experience.
Yeah, you want you want the norm. You don't want to be
Yes.
create edge cases. I
No.
see. Yeah. So interesting. So from there, just now with the lots of inspections and training that you've done, have you find common patterns that lots of your clients and and hotels that you train are there particularly a few things that happens quite often?
Yeah, I would say a lot of it now, especially with the younger generation entering into the workforce. A common theme is just getting back to basics. It's nothing rocket science that the client is requesting, but it's really how can we making sure that the entire staff and property is consistent with their service, and they all have that back to basics foundation as well. And then even with the younger generation of they're trying to communicate is a little bit more different than I would say how you and I were entering into the hospitality. So yeah, so there it's very interesting now to seeing how that all plays into what the client is looking for.
I see. And the other thing you shared in the past, I find it pretty interesting. You kind of said that the steps of service is kind of like becoming robotic, right? I think
Yeah.
especially lots of the hotels are with more like franchise and bigger scales, they have their standard operating procedure they train people on. I think getting to a point that it could feel, I think we all been to hotels that the whole process feels, the conversation, the talking, the script feels pretty robotic, right?
Yeah.
Do you see that still being the case, and how do you hoteliers think about rewinding that, like kind of create that, being genuine and being warm.
Yeah. So I say in the training, let your personality show. So, coming from Ritz-Carlton, even to this day, and to saying my pleasure. And that is a very common of a phrase for Ritz-Carlton employees always to be saying my pleasure, to the point where it does sound very robotic, where it's now everyone is saying that consistently. So it is interesting now to seeing those big brand box having to reinvent their scripts and letting a lot of it to saying, okay, we want to making sure that you're speaking properly and like not just using slang verbiage. But you could be able to saying, maybe how are you today? Could be like the script, but you can say, are you enjoying your day out by the beach, or are you enjoying your stay? So we're still asking the guests the same question in sense of showing that interest into them. However, now it's more of like, okay, let's give some options and seeing what feels comfortable for you to being able to say. Because what feels comfortable to me might be different what feels comfortable to you. And then even for you trying to saying it you may now seem even more stop and go in the flow of your conversation.
Yeah. So on the spectrum of your experience, what's the most memorable guest experience? I on both sides too, right? The most impressive one that you've seen and the worst that you've seen. Obviously, we don't share names. Let's just talk
Yeah.
about the experience.
Now, the best experience I would have to say is always getting to travel with my family and friends and really getting to bring them on to like seeing basically a performance.
Yeah.
Because I always say, the employees were on stage, and especially too when you're at like those ultra high caliber hotels and just watching how everything is like performed. It's like a dance basically, especially in a restaurant.
Mm.
So those are always the most memorable. And I would also too saying having shaved truffle on my pasta is also too when they come out and they do the whole presentation. I'm like, this is amazing. So yeah, so a lot of fun experiences, but it's more of seeing it through my friends and family. Because to me, I'm like, well, they should be doing this.
Yeah. It is not you're expecting certain things versus like
Yeah.
the more normal day-to-day, like the typical traveler, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. But yeah, so it's those experiences that really make me smile.
I see. What about the worst?
Oh my gosh, the worst is it's just I would have to say there was one time I was in Vegas. So big casino hotel. So check-ins just, you go into the kiosk. It's not even going nowadays to a person. My room was ready. I was like, okay, fine. So then I go up to the room and housekeeping was still in the room. And so she told me to wait outside. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to wait. Most people would go back down to the
Yeah.
front desk to be in like, my room is not ready. Um, so yeah, so then she told me to wait and she was about 5 minutes. I probably waited out there. And then she also too put out an ironing board and the ironing board was stained. And so of course, here I am taking photos of the ironing board while it's in the hallway. Um, And then she finally lets me in, and then the room, I mean, it was dust galore. And so we know as hotel professionals, well, let's see what the air vent looks like.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it hadn't been changed. And so I would say that was one of my, it was just one thing after another of things that is just that it was very hard to even change that stay around. And that's
Yeah.
what I talk about too in training is like you may think that this is the only thing that they have happened. And so you're like, oh, I'm not gonna, put it in the report. They didn't check in until like 4:30.
Mm.
It's right after checkout time, or check-in time. But then it's like, well, then they went to the restaurant and then they had to wait, 25 minutes for their drink, and then no one refilled their beverages. And so then they decide to go out to the beach for dinner, and then they order a steak, and the steak temperature is different. And all those little things, really add up to that guest stay. And everyone's like, oh, we don't need a reporter. We took care of it right then and there. But now when you're reviewing it and you're like, wow, this guest consistently had opportunities throughout their stay.
I see. With all of those small, tiny, you always find problems here and there. Do you find most of the time it's all due to a process problem or a staff people problem?
I would have to say a little bit of training for
Okay.
consistency. A lot. Well, also too with leadership, makes a or breaks, I feel like a department. And I know that a lot now has changed with there's so much more responsibility on the leaders. So it's so they want to be out on the floor, but they're pulled into so many other meetings. So I feel like there's just a big combination of the leadership, the training. I mean, even the pre-shift, like that's a great way that you can knock both things out with the leadership and your training. And even when I come in and doing training sessions, my first question always is, do you do pre-shift? And it's funny of the responses. So it tells me already
Yeah.
how this training session's gonna go.
Gotcha. Because it doesn't seem like it might be a standard process at some point in the past, but it seems like it's a craft like getting forgotten to have almost
Yeah.
like to me sometimes it's almost like a ritual, right? Like just you have that head of the ship and actually have people gather and just talk about just align, right?
Yeah.
And I think the other part which I think your training might happens I run into very often is the crazy high turnover nature of our industry when the fact that staff comes and goes, and I think it's getting worse. Just people are more fluent, going bouncing, left and right. So trying to retain good employees, train them, and also like making sure employees having good experience. Because one of something that I learned throughout lots of the podcast interviews and just from hotel partners that we work with is if the hotel employees having good experience working there, that tend to translate into better guest experience. But I think just
Yes.
that like the whole chain of industry problems. I don't know what's your viewpoint like fixing that as a exec, as a leader for the property, like what can they do to improve that across the board?
The biggest thing I would have to say is onboarding. Be proactive with your onboarding and not reactive. How many times have you been to a department or started a position? They're like, "Oh, you start today?" Or, "Oh, your manager will pick you up at, 2 p.m. after orientation, and there's no one from the department to, pick you up from daycare," I say. So I really feel, as a whole hotel is to making sure is what does that process look like from the onboarding and the communication of when orientation is, what does their first 2 weeks look like? So really it's systematic of being like, we know this person's starting on Wednesday because they have Monday and Tuesday orientation. They're going to follow with Sally's schedule so they're consistent with who their trainer is, not Sally one day and Raphael the next day and someone else the third day. Really having, what does that training plan look like? Because the more that you're proactive, we know that day-to-day operations can change at any moment. And so I feel like when you have this process in place, they don't get really put into, like we say, to the wolves, thrown into the wolves. They keep on their schedule. And I know you have your trainer and they call out and things happen like that, but I feel like if you're, have that plan in place, and then, okay, what does it look like at like a plan B or plan C? But really that first impression, we say that's for the guests, but it's also too for the employees as well.
Yeah. It's almost, I've started kind of forming this philosophy of like when you philosophically treating the employees like, the guests at the hotels too, right? I think
Yeah.
just, that level of hospitality to your own team that could be reflected to how the staff also front facing the actual guests.
Yeah.
So, we all humans end of the day, right? We all coming in and we all want to have a good time. We all want to show up and doing our best work if we are treated with respect. I think lots of the challenges that we've seen is when people come and go, it start kind of becoming the number on the spreadsheet, right? Hey, you have to fill people here and there. This is the costs. How are we gonna just like reduce the cost or like find coverage and things like that, without remembering every like behind every number, there's actually a real human being, whether it's
Yes.
the staff or whether it's a guest. Like, we are all like real human being experiencing like the property.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's also too why you should check in on your team as well.
Yeah.
Like you said, we're all human. You never know what someone may be going through outside of work, and we spend so many hours at work, especially in the hospitality industry, that it is like your family where you should check in with one another.
Yeah, that makes sense. So now kind of getting into back to the topic of return on investment, right? So I think kind of going through the whole inspections, lots of homework, before, during, and after. Now you have a solid report that kind of points out all the opportunities to elevate the experience and the service level. So we want a bit like where how did hotel leaders reach out to you the first place? Like what triggers them to realize, oh, I need training, oh, I need inspection. Like, what when hoteliers come to you the first place, like what would be the pain and why did they have to move with that urgency? They need to find somebody to get it fixed.
Well, I mean, I think it's a lot. They're seeing it from the guest reviews. Their TripAdvisor is starting to slip. And maybe also too, just even just as a kickoff to season, to being like, okay, really, let's be able to uh set where we are, to seeing where we need to, making sure we're improving for season, like as a being proactive. There's a lot of different reasons why the hotels reach out to me, but on the service and training side is I think that they start seeing it starting to slip, and they want to making sure that they get on top of it before it gets
Yeah.
to where they don't want it to be.
Exactly. So translating that from a financial perspective, because I there's the inspection parts, and there's also the financial ROI in terms of like training costs, right? So training costs, convincing or just navigating that with the hotel leaders, why it's worth the cost when many leaders sometimes will have a hard time correlating the training costs into financial like returns.
Yes. Yeah, so I mean, I get it. I, come from the operations and budgets are tight and it really um takes making sure like the entire executive team is on board of putting into this investment, but then also too of saying, okay, you know what, maybe we don't have a big enough budget. Where can we start off, small?
Yeah.
To being like, okay, this is our biggest area that we want to focus on. How can we make it work within our budget? And so, like I said, we make it customized. So, okay, you don't want the whole A to Z of services, but what can we be able to do to really making sure that you're seeing the greatest return with the little amount of time that we're there working with the team. And also too, I feel like, people are now looking, we talked about retention, it costs so much money to now go through and hire a new person. I feel like, they're starting to see in like, okay, we should now be able to save on our retention because we are having this investment to our employees and giving them the training as well. And even from a financial, it's not just, me coming or first rate hospitality coming in, but it's also too, now we're taking employees off the floor. Does it run into overtime? And there's so many other things that you really have to look at on that investment. How does it making sure that it's not changing day-to-day operations while training is being conducted?
I see. And just one thing I want to point out from a service perspective on the commercial side, because this is kind of where Liaison does a lot of work for hotel partners, is occasionally we will have hoteliers wondering, hey, yes, we are not a luxury hotel. We got 3-star reviews. Like, why would I care? And people should care because improving that service review score and all that has everything to do to a hotel's top line and bottom line. Getting better reviews on Google and across our OTAs, right? This is a one key thing to really impact your ranking across all the OTAs platforms as well as Google as well. This is really the trust signal that determines, what traveler decides to book your hotel versus your competitor. Even if you are a more like a budget 2-star, 3-star hotels, people still look at that because there are the budget hotels that do the best in their class. And if I only have a limited budget, I would still prefer going for a better rating hotels than a mediocre ones, right?
Yeah.
And now when you have better visibilities because you have the trust signal and the reviews, then you're naturally gonna show up higher to the top across again all OTA listings as well as Google. Then in that case, you're gonna be spending less on things like accelerators to really like push up your ranking inorganically. So you're going to be saving some cost from a commission perspective. So you save your bottom line. Now, because you have high ratings, the guests love your properties. You have a better pricing power. There's a reason why you can price your experience and stay higher than your competitors. So it's also a top line play as well. And last is kind of the newer things that we always talk about is AI visibility. We all know that travelers now plan and discover trips and accommodation a lot through various AI platforms. Google has the AI overview. Obviously, we have ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, all of that. And many times when these platforms recommends a stay at the hotels, it comes from, there's a bunch of, you have to get citation. You have to show it up across the internet, getting on all those authoritative travel media and things like that. But your reviews will also be translated into a sentiment score that AI will actually look at the sentiment of the from the internet about your property. If you're not earning a high sentiment from the users or from the guests, you are also have a lower chance of getting recommended by AI. So this is like the core of hospitality and the core of what you provide to the guests. So if you are not thinking about that right now, if you're thinking about that, the training, obviously we have to talking about like training that are really effective and really move the needles and actually upgrading and improving the guest services, like working with Stephanie. But actually investing in that has everything to do with improving your top line and bottom line.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well said. And I would add, the only thing I would add on to is with the loyalty. I mean, because now, you'll have that guest because of the service that they're now staying loyal to a brand. So when they are going to Chat or Claude or any of the other AI and they're looking for recommendations, oh, I'm traveling to Mount Zion, I'm loyal to Marriott, and putting that in there, now Marriott's going to be the one that is coming up. And so you also too want that loyalty as well as when guests are looking at their travel as well as that they're staying loyal or
Yep.
coming back and repeat.
Yep. Makes sense. So part of your training, I'm curious, Stephanie, one thing that commercially we also talk a lot about is upsell
Yes.
at the front desk. And lots of front desk staff feel awkward when it comes to this sort of upsell conversation. So do you have any tips and insights to share how to naturally do that upsell without feeling like a sales pitch?
Yeah. First of all is get rid of the fear.
Okay.
Worst comes to worst, they say no. They already made their reservation. They're happy with their room category. So when I'm talking to the front desk agents, I go, get rid of any fear that you think that they're going to like come over the desk and being like, why are you asking me that? No, just get rid of that fear. And I would also to practice so it seems more natural in your conversation. So maybe you start saying, oh, we have you confirmed for 2 nights in our premier king bedroom. I just wanted to let you know I do see we also too have the superior overlooking the city view available for $50 extra a night. Would you like to have that upgraded view? And then they could be like, oh no, I'm just here for the 1 night or 2 nights. I'm fine. Or they may be like, oh wow, the city view. So really using those words to being able to describe the upgrade. Or maybe it's just the higher floor. Maybe you see like they're on the, basic room and they're on the third floor and you see like a higher floor is available. But I think a lot of it is how you have it just naturally in your conversation and using descriptive words helps a lot too.
I see.
Because you want to feel comfortable saying it.
Yeah. And practice always makes perfect.
Yes.
I should say practice makes consistency. So I think just the more the more consistent you are, the more natural you're gonna be. We are
Yeah.
never perfect. We can always get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Stephanie. So last
Mhm.
question for you to get us out of here. So for lots of our independent hotel listeners, who never really got that luxury budget to, hire a consultant, someone like you coming in to do the proper inspection and training, what are couple things, if one or couple things you can think of that independent hoteliers can start looking at and start implementing this week to improve their reviews and service?
Yeah, I mean, I would say one is looking at how is your communication, department communication. So, how is front desk communicating to housekeeping, or how is housekeeping communicating to engineering or food and beverage? We talk so much about our departments working in silos. I feel that you, as the hotelier, really looking at is our team, our property really working as a team, or are we working just in departments? And how does that communication to the guests look like?
Mm.
So that's a big one, I think, of looking at. And then also to a checks and balance at the steps of service. So really looking at, okay, if a guest is checking in at 2 o'clock and their room is not ready, do we have a protocol in place to saying, oh, we, recommend having lunch in our restaurant? Or it looks like, let me to check with housekeeping to seeing how long it's going on, instead of just saying your room's not ready. But really, what is those checks and balance to making sure that the guest is given the proper information without over promising either. And then we're ended up under delivering. And then the third one I would say is, even if you don't have a budget, like you're not having renovation until for 2 years. But really, what does it look like, even for like the pens, for example? What pens is your guest using in the restaurant? I mean, how many
Mm.
times have you been to a restaurant? It's like the law firm
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
of some local place and stuff. So just looking at even those little things on the soft goods of your property can really make a big difference while you're in between that next renovation.
Yeah, yeah. And I just wanna I'll close it out with a personal story where I think many times, when running a hotel, so many rooms, so many guests coming by, there's always opportunities that complain and situations happen. Is unavoidable. But I see some of those opportunities as a way to wow the guests. So it's
Mhm.
opportunity to meet, right? So one experience, it was a decade ago, actually, traveling to Singapore. It was a small boutique independent hotel. Really nice, cute, but not nowhere near 5 star. Uh, and then we stay there. We travel with families. My parents were there, and they ran out of hot water overnight,
Oh.
and we were so furious because I we're expecting, like, especially when parents are around, we wanted to make sure our parents had a good time, and having no hot water for shower, like, overnight, it was bad. So we had the next morning, obviously we had a very serious conversation and complaint with the front desk manager, and what they did really wowed us, the way that obviously taking responsibility, taking accountability, sorry that that shouldn't happen. And they really sprinkle us with all sorts of, like, um above and beyond service, throughout our stay, right? Getting all these, crazy goodies on a daily basis, giving us snacks here and there, giving us actually treating us our last night staying there, it was almost like a, not a Michelin star restaurant, but it's still pretty upscale. They just, give us like a full restaurants at no cost, just making sure that, like, they do everything they can to compensate our inconvenience to some extent. And on our day of checkout, going back to the airport, they actually find a crazy high class Mercedes, just like to actually taking care of our whole ride back to the airport in style, right? So I think
Yeah.
just all of that they are willing to go out, they're willing to do above and beyond. It wowed us, and we end up actually leaving them a really really like solid review, just with the whole stories and all that. And I think that kind of a good example of how they turned a complaint into a opportunities to really deliver the best that can be. So I think just that really resonate with Stephanie, everything that you shared today. I think
Yes.
just everything is a process. It can be trained. There can be protocols. There can be check and balances just to make sure that hotelier, you be you, right? Be hospitable, and when situations arise, just do what you can to kind of bring that service to the best you can to the guest, and
Yes.
I think that will really help elevate your experience, your service score, and ultimately your financial performance of your property.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
Yeah. So Stephanie, where can people find more about you and First Rate Hospitality?
Yeah, so website is firstratehospitality.com. Also too involved on LinkedIn, so Stephanie Ledger or First Rate Hospitality. I would say LinkedIn is the best if you want to reach out or have any questions too.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Stephanie Ledger, for joining us today and sharing all your expertise and insights.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Lights On podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.